What happened in the worst Grand Prix weekend of XRS history? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to XRS Plus, the official XRS podcast. I just recorded this podcast and it didn't save, and now I'm going again. I feel like I've been talking about Canada, this awful track, for so long, but we're going again. I don't know how long I've been sat here, goodness me. Yes, round 12, Canada. Did it go to plan? Yeah. No, not quite. Not quite. And the reason for this, and I'm sorry to all of you Canada lovers watching the podcast. I know Raven West, you might be watching as well, the owner of the league, who was a big fan of this track. It certainly didn't go to plan. I think, especially when coming into this whole league racing scene, of course this is XRS's Season 1 calendar, you have to, and I categorize tracks into kind of three categories, right? You have the common tracks. Sorry, this is going to be a lot of waffle in this podcast until we actually get to the facts. It's going to be a long one, so sit tight. I categorize tracks into kind of three sections, okay? You have when you're making calendar, common tracks, you have the occasionals, and you have the rares, if you want to call them. The common ones, the reason they're common, the reason they're on all calendars across the board is because they're good for racing. They're very open, they're very popular. You have tracks like Monza, like Silverstone, like Belgium, like, you know, all these kind of tracks. Qatar is very open and popular, but maybe especially because it's new. Then you have kind of the more occasionals. You have, you know, Portugal, Zandvoort. I'd argue Canada's breaking into that because you do see it quite often on calendars these days. It's the tracks that maybe aren't so amazing for racing necessarily, but it is nice to kind of bring a couple in to bring the interest into a calendar. Obviously, most leagues will have maybe 10 races on the calendar, up to 12, to 15, to 16, to maybe up to 20. I think the highest I've seen on the calendar is 20. And bear in mind, you have like 26 tracks in the game, so you won't cover the entire surface. You will have some you're going to have to cut. And I think it's very important, especially in Season 1 of your league, to bang the calendar. It needs to be on point, and it needs to be relatively safe as well. And obviously, I won't talk on other leagues' calendars. I think that's it's appropriate. It's not my part of things. But I was a part of making the XRS calendar with Raven West, and I think that, like I said, Season 1 is very important to have a calendar that's popular, that has a lot of tracks that people like. And actually, you know what? For a little tutorial, if you're thinking about making a league, if you're maybe an admin and it's coming up to the end of your season, you're looking to do another season, I think that one of the things we aim for is a very systematic season, a very systematic calendar. If you notice, for example, straight away, I think what turns people's eyes is the familiarity of it. You know, starting the season off with a Bahrain or an Australia, we did Bahrain, and ending it with Abu Dhabi or Brazil, we did Abu Dhabi. It brings that kind of like familiarity. Drivers will join the league, see that and think, you know what, it looks nice. Because maybe you see the start and the end. It looks nice, you know what I mean? If you started with something random, they'll think, oh, they've just picked this out of a hat kind of thing. Throughout the calendar, we've got some kind of system. Obviously, we start and end in Middle East. We go Bahrain, Qatar, the final two rounds being Saudi and Abu Dhabi. We've got our European section in the middle, just like real F1, which jumps from high-low downforce. You can see the first, the early rounds, we've got Portugal, Spain, Monza, Hungary, up, down, with the wings. We head into the USA section. Now we've broken out of our European section. We've just done Canada. We've got COTA next week. Go to Singapore, then we're back to Middle East again. It brings that familiarity where drivers, especially new to the league, will be like, wow, this looks nice. It looks nice because I like the tracks and the order they're in. Like I said, you want to have that balance of common tracks. I know it's boring, but you want to have your Silverstones, you want to have your Spas, your Austrias, because they're not only are they good for racing, that's the reason they're common. They're good for racing, lots of DRS, open corners, lots of braking zones, so it can have good overtaking. But they're safe. They're quite safe. You know what I mean? You don't always see a safety car in Austria, or I guess Spa's not amazing, especially in this game. It hasn't been amazing. But Silverstone's usually pretty safe as well. It's always important, like I said, to linger into the occasionals, if you want to call them that. You want to, maybe put in a Zandvoort. Not always amazing racing, but it is quite nice to have some closer racing. There's walls on either side. You maybe want to pop in a Portugal, and it's quite a popular track, especially recently. It's been a very popular track on calendars. You want to pop in maybe a Japan, I'd argue Japan's arguably rare at this point. It's not the most common track on the calendars these days. And then, of course, you have the rare tracks. And this is risky because you have to play lightly with these. If you chuck them in the entire calendar, naming no names, if you just chuck them in the calendar, not only does it make it, does it push bad standards of driving, and I'll get onto that when we talk about Canada. We're already 5 minutes in, I haven't talked about Canada yet. But if you push lots of rare tracks in, tracks like Vegas, like Monaco, like Baku, I'd argue Singapore, but it's usually okay. I think China's probably still in that section. It's still not a very popular track. France, it will just, what's the word? Not necessarily encourage bad driving, but it makes it more likely. It makes it more likely to happen, you know what I mean? That's like, especially like I said, in a season 1 calendar, like we've done in XRS, you want to have something nice. You want to have something familiar, and you want to have something that doesn't have that much bad racing. For example, like I said, round 1, we could have gone Bahrain or Australia. Australia, while it has 4 DRS zones, it has a lot of walls. You can get the familiar safety cars. In fairness, when we did Australia round 4, it wasn't actually bad at all. Australia was a very good weekend. But Bahrain was levels. Bahrain was arguably our best weekend still. We've had some real bangers. We've had Austria was very good. Silverstone was very good. Hungary was amazing, considering it's not really an overtaking track. But Bahrain still very, very strong. It was a nice start to the league. I don't think we had a single safety car at all, to my memory. Maybe we had, I think we had one in Division 4. But that's a very good start to the league. People will enjoy it because it's safe driving. Canada, on the other hand, good God, was this a bad weekend. So Division 4, I don't think had a safety car, which is very impressive. Division 3 had 2. And bear in mind, obviously, we have reduced safety cars, so 3 is the max. Division 2 had 3. And I believe Division 1 had 3 as well. And I had a VSC as well. Goodness me. I just want to take a moment to have an overlook on Canada. And by the way, before we start this, don't think I'm being biased, by the way. Yes, I agree to have Canada on the calendar, and it's not a fan favourite of me. I do not like Canada. And also, don't come at me saying, oh, you had a bad race, you're just complaining at it. No. I started on pole. I got pole in my worst track. I don't want to hear that. I couldn't. It was dry tyres on a wet track. So yes, fair enough. I got kind of lucky, and I just controlled the car better than others. But I got pole, finished P3. Yes, I got quite bad on the penalty side. I got 6 seconds of track limit pens. Fair enough. But it wouldn't have changed my position anyway. I got P3. I'm very, very happy. Don't you worry. But I still don't like the track. And I'm still going to complain about it just the same. Looking into the track from a driving point of view, first of all, which is probably the worst of the two that I'm going to talk about. You have a straight, then you have turn 1 and 2. Turn 1 and 2, actually, don't mind it. Because if you know me, I'm a big fan of a heavy braking zone. Good for overtaking, good for dives. Big mention on Dan, by the way. Unreal dives. And Charlie as well, but Charlie was more in the hairpin in Division 4. Big dives from them. Really enjoyed watching their races. Turn 1 and 2, I really like the idea of a more rounded turn 2. It makes the exit on the outside and the inside very, very important. So good, like that. Turn 3 and 4, a bit too tight for my liking. It's good to have tight corners. So I hold my hands up, fair enough. It's good to have some tight corners. But turn 3 and 4 can be smooth on your own. Difficult when you're wheel to wheel. You have to have a lot of trust with the driver next to you. And I think that will resonate. Because, like, for example, me, I'm quite a safe driver. Statistically, I think I am the safest driver in the league. I've got no penalty points and I've done all races. So on paper, if you're racing next to me, you should trust me. But and like when I'm racing against people like Skiers and Katie, who have been safe throughout the season, I didn't feel unsafe, but I didn't feel safe. You know what I mean? It's a track that forces you to be on top of each other most of the time, and like if you over push the car or yourself or your ability, there will just be a crash. We saw so many crashes this weekend. It wasn't great to see. Time 5, just a corner really, quite irrelevant. Turn 6 and 7. I'm not a fan favourite at turn 7. But that's because I'm on no traction and no haptic feedback on a controller. So it's a bit painful sometimes, especially in the wet in qualifying. But it's fine. I think as a corner it's fine. Then we get to the problems. Turn 8 and 9 may be the worst complex of corners on the track entirely, actually. I'd argue the chicane is not great as well, but we'll get to complaining about that in a minute. Turn 8, and this needs to be announced to the universe and to the game. They need to tweet this and make sure everyone who plays the game is pinned. Good God, turn 8 in Canada is not an overtaking point. And the problem with And like people see the DRS before it and just think, okay, right, it's a point to overtake. No, the DRS is there to bunch the pack up and maybe make an overtake before the corner. The only point I made an overtake at that corner was on Matt, and he was on older tyres, so I got past him, the entire car passed him before the corner. I don't think it's genuinely possible, at least not safely anyway, or at relative speed, to go through those corners wheel to wheel without someone getting pushed over the rumble strips, over the one of the curbs. I think the problem we saw this weekend, if I refer to an incident we saw with Alfie in Division 1, he wasn't even wheel to wheel with Mick, he was just behind him. But the fact that Mick was close to someone, his speed was so much reduced and he got rear-ended and got spun because the speed was so much reduced. You don't even have to be the drivers going wheel to wheel. You just have to be around them, just to be just behind them, and you have to be able to tell that they're going to be going slower up ahead, excuse me. I think it takes such a level of awareness in that corners, and it's one of them ones, you know what it is? It's one of them ones where if you're on your own, if you're bored and feel like, you know what, I'm going to do some time trial. I'm just bored on an afternoon, I don't feel like doing anything, so I'm going to go do some time trial. You're not going to pick, I mean, at least me, I'm not going to pick an open, good for racing track. I'm never really going to pick a Silverstone or a Belgium or an Austria, and I really like those three tracks. I'm probably going to pick a Canada or an Imola or a Saudi, you know, a track where you're always on the edge, because it's much more fun. For me, I don't really like Canada, I don't really like Imola, I'm not a huge fan of Saudi, but they're good fun on your own, you know what I mean? Just chucking your car into corners, getting so close to walls, to all this and that, to track limits. I find that very fun. Problems start arising in that situation when you're doing those corners that you're used to chucking yourself into with someone beside you, you know what I mean? Or someone behind you clearly caused issues. Moving up to the hairpin. Hairpin, great for me, especially no traction, so I was able to get good exits, catching people off guard there. All fine. Got some really good dives from Charlie. We'll talk about Div 4 in a minute. And then going down to the Devil's Chicane. Now, I talked about this earlier in Turn 1. I'm a big fan of heavy braking zone. If you don't know the point of a chicane, it is like a fast section of the track, of a racing track. A chicane is there to just slow you down. To give an overtaking point, to slow the car down, and then they're off on their way again. Think about the Parabolica to the Curva Grande, or even the Della Roggia chicane in Monza. It's an enormous gap there. That's half the track. So they have Turn 1 and Turn 2 chicane to slow everyone down. Imola has a chicane to slow everyone down. Miami has a chicane, but that's kind of pointless because it's Miami, so everything they do is pointless. I think of more chicanes on the track. But anyway, most of them, especially like Imola, for example, on the exit of Acqua Minerale, going towards the penultimate corner, you have that chicane. It's a bit of an RNG chicane, but you have not necessarily maybe not an overtaking point, but a section of the track to slow the cars down. We lead us on to Canada, the Canada chicane, which it has raised curbs on both sides, a wall for good measure called the Wall of Champions, and it has the pit lane, which starts quite early, so you have less of a runoff in case you do have to go deep, as opposed to Monza, where you can just cut the corner and go slow through the polystyrene boards. We saw incidents in this corner in every single division multiple times. I don't understand, and this is not a shot at anyone. I'm not gonna aim this at anyone. I'm just gonna say incidents. I'm not going to say anyone's fault, but I don't understand how you genuinely think that that's an overtaking point, going wheel to wheel with someone through the chicane. Down the inside, maybe, if they back out on the outside. Round the outside, how on earth do you think that's going to happen? So just off the top of my head, I haven't done any research. I've only got the list of people I've got for driver winner, driver loser. Just off the top of my head, we've got Reese and Calic crash in Division 4. It was Jamie and Walker crashed in Division 4. Division 3, Owls and someone crashed. I don't remember who it was. Matt and Neek crashed in Division 3. Division 2 was awful. Division 2, Corb and Casper on the exit. Ronan and Rosman during the corner. And Rosman tried to hang it around the outside, which was awful. Division 1, there's got to be someone. In fairness, I can't think of anyone in Division 1, so fair. But I don't understand, like, why? It's such a tight chicane. The only times I overtook in between the hairpin and the chicane was on the straight. I got skids on the straight. I think I overtook Katie at one point, and maybe I didn't. But I overtook on the straight. If I was even remotely wheel to wheel with someone going towards that chicane, I would have probably backed out because it's just so pointless. Like, what's the best thing that's going to happen there? You get a cool overtake, you probably end up pushing them off and they get a warning and probably end up reporting you as well. Or, the worst comes, you get put in the wall. And it's a wall. That's broken wing for an entire lap. You can't cut the section and go into the pits. The risk is so high, and I can't believe that people genuinely tried it. You know what I mean? Same as turn 8 as well. Why on earth would you try going down the inside wheel to wheel with someone? Because there's not going to be enough room. Something's going to happen. Notice what Charlie did, actually. What Charlie did was very, very smart. With Jamie, backed out, swapped it to a switchback on the exit at turn 9. That's what you need to do, because it's safe, and he got the move done exactly the same as if he bombed it down the inside. And it was very, very aware. I'm not saying that it's impossible to go wheel to wheel in the chicane or at turn 8 and turn 9, but it's unlikely that the trust between two drivers and the space they're going to allow each other, especially in the lower divisions, is going to work. It's not going to hit. It's gonna miss. We're 15 minutes into this podcast. I haven't even started Division 4. And I think the problem with this track as a whole, across the weekend, especially in Division 2, there was too many crashes. There was too much safety cars. There was too much aggression. There was no patience. The only genuine overtakes, I would say, are on the straight, not in the chicane, on the straight after the hairpin. I'd argue the hairpin as well if you dive down the inside, because it's a heavy braking zone after a bit of a straight. On the straight following the hairpin, and then going into turn 1. That's the only two genuine overtaking points. I would even argue that turn 6 isn't an overtaking point, unless you're careful, because the other person will just turn into you if they don't see you coming, or if they aren't aware. You know what I mean? It's just a very risky track. You're on the edge. We put it on the calendar for that reason, and it has not hit. And that is the reason. That is the reason that Canada may not be returning. And I mean, I want it to work. I do, because I enjoyed my race. I really did. But then I watched back the highlights. I commentated Division 2 and Division 1, and I saw, and I engineered Division 4. I saw what was going on behind me in the midfield, in the back, and it's unfortunate, you know. It's unfortunate. I would like a place where, you know, drivers are able to trust each other and bang it into corners together and have some really good racing. And I don't think, and especially after Division 2, we had a lot of claims about the poor driving standards. I don't think it's the poor driving standards, because we've had this season, we've had some really good races. Division 2, like I said, was the specific one. I would know because I commentate them quite often. We've had tight tracks. If you look at the calendar, we've had Hungary. Hungary was one of the best races of the season in Division 2. Spain was a very good race in Division 2. You know, Qatar was a very good race in Division 2. We've had a lot of good races in Division 2, and very, very minimal safety cars as well. Canada, unfortunately, didn't hit. Drivers were too opportunistic, they were too eager to make a move, and they weren't patient. And this is what led to that, was a lot of crashes. And I don't, like I said, I don't think it's bad standards. I think we'll be back on it. I mean, Kota's next. Kota, I mean, again, track limits track, but I think it'll make for really good racing. We've seen a lot of good wheel-to-wheel sections in Sector 2 and 3. I can only hope that it'll be much better. The other reason I don't like Canada, and this is more of a personal thing, as a commentator, as a streamer, as a, you know, I guess entertainer in this XRS scene, is that the track limits ruin it. Not the racing specifically, but the finishing. For example, I commentated Division 2, and the track limits ruined it. Like, as in you could tell what the order was going to be while people were fighting. If you even think back to my race, think back to Division 3. Yeah, I know I was useless and I cut the corner too many times and got a 6-second penalty, like a useless idiot. But it would have been a 3-way fight, me, Katie, and Skiz for the end. But we already knew how it was going to end. It was going to be those two and then me. In Division 2, I know it was much more, what's the word? Obvious, because there was a lot more penalties. Division 1 was quite cool because it was more on pace than like there was a couple of people that could have won. I think it went down almost to the line. But Division 4 as well, a lot of penalties. It was kind of obvious where everyone was going to finish. It kind of deads commentary, if you ask me. From a personal and selfish point of view, I love screaming at a final, you know, battle on the final lap. If you remember Monza, Division 1, Reese versus, I think it was Alfie on the final lap. I mean, Monza isn't really a track you can go wheel to wheel everywhere. They made it work. It was wicked. And I would personally just like to have more of that. But it is what it is. Anyway, we are 20 minutes into this podcast. We haven't even started on Division 4. Goodness me, if you're joining me on this premiere halfway through, we haven't even started Division 4. I've just been waffling for the past 20 minutes. So we'll get on with that now. Goodness me. And I've recorded this twice as well. So I might have missed stuff that I wanted to say earlier on. But we're going to get on with it now. Division 4 driver winner the main man, Charlie, in the Ferrari, absolutely cooking. Now got the most wins in the entire league with 4. Incredible consistency, really found his feet in Ferrari. Evidently his performances are shooting up. He's now, I've just got an advert, but I think he's 3rd in the championship, maybe not, maybe he's 2nd, let's find out. I've got another advert, goodness me. How am I getting hit with these adverts? Everyone's waiting to hear my driver winner. He's 2nd in the championship, 2 points away from the lead. Behind him, 13 points Liam, 14 points Blake. Division 4, which, like I said, I've said many times, in my head, I'd publicly wrapped it up. I'd say Liam's going to win it. Let's just focus on the midfield battle. No. It's a 4-way battle now. Charlie's now P2, overtaking Liam. Unbelievable consistency. It's another win for him. Very, very solid. From 6th on the grid. Also, actually, watch the highlights. His dives into the hairpin, unreal. He came out of nowhere on your screen. Just watch the left side of your screen. You'll just see a Ferrari pop into view. Unbelievable. My driver loser is going to be Peekaboo. I feel for Peekaboo. Currently 17th in the championship. He was cooking. He started on the soft tyres, went for a very aggressive strategy. Could have worked, but he spun and broke his wing. I think he should have pitted a bit early, if I remember correctly. He was up in 3rd at one point, and he was really fighting. I appreciate he was on softs as well, so he had the pace advantage. If he'd been able to manage that a bit better, and then pit a bit early, maybe gone to hards, and then got the undercut and maybe defended, you could have been looking at a top 5. I think a podium would have been a push, because I think the Ferraris and the Alphas were looking very, very quick. But I think a top 5 would have been very, very solid for Alpine. He ended up finishing, I want to say it was 11th, which have been really downgrades a race that could have been a flagship one for Alpine. Yeah, he finished 11th after qualifying 7th, which is pretty solid for Alpine anyway. Just unfortunate. My team winner is Alfa Romeo. Great teamwork between K1 Yo and Vlad. Once again, we saw them leading 1 and 2 and using the DRS to block the drivers behind. Really good communication. I think that they were just kind of picked apart by Charlie and his confidence on the, especially going into the hairpin, like I said. But all in all, good drive from them. K1 Yo with another podium, P2. Vlad with a P5 and a front row start as well, so extra points for the team. Vlad's now 5th in the championship, overtaking Pistol Peter. K1 Yo's overtaken Kalik up to 7th. Really good confidence from those two. They had a wobbly start to the season. Vlad, an ex-champion, you could say, in KRL, now bringing back his old form. K1 Yo, new to the league racing scene, really finding his form. 2 drivers with a lot of potential. I think the transfer window, they're going to be seeing some TPs in their DMs for sure. Alfa Romeo now 4th in the Div 4 Constructors Championships. Incredible. We're very, very solid. My team loser can be Aston Martin. I feel for Cajun One Eye because we've seen what he can do. He's been a beast when he needs to be. Let's say that. Silverstone, I think he finished top 5. Spa, to my memory, got pole and finished 3rd. Yep, very, very strong. I know Austria didn't quite go to plan. Looks like he's another driver that hasn't quite gone to plan as well. Qualified 13th, finished 16th. Walker, not much better. Qualified 11th, finished 15th. So they're going to be scoring 1 point after that weekend. And I really like those two. Walker and Cajun are two of my boys now in the kind of this racing scene. You know, I'm always supporting them, cheering them on. But it's unfortunate to see them finishing with close to minimal points, considering Aston are very solid and getting two cars on track for every race. They're currently down in 9th. They've just been overtaken by AlphaTauri in the Div 4 Constructors. And it's going to be unfortunate to see because a lot of Aston Martin's contracts run out the end of the season. It's going to be interesting to see how they cope with the transfer window next season. But we'll have to see as it comes to that. We're going to continue bushing through these. We're going to go up to Division 3, my neck of the woods. My driver winner is going to be your boy, Kamikaze Katie. Unreal drive. From 12th on the grid, cooked his way up the field. Very, very quick, very confident. The reason I'm not going to give it to Skiz is because he's found his feet up at the front now. I feel like, obviously, this second half of the season, I think he's shared a podium with me at every race. No, Silverstone, he wasn't up there, but Katie was. I know those two are I believe, cousins. So very exciting to see 2 new faces in this kind of XRS racing scene, and they are both really performing. And it's interesting because McLaren, a team, obviously, so Katie's just been signed for McLaren, performed on round 1 of his new signing, getting a P2. Skiz, of course, went to Red Bull after having some very solid performances. Has won another race. He won didn't win in Belgium, but in Austria as well. So, sorry, Skiz. But I'm really, really excited about these two in terms of what they can bring to the division. Because if you remember, especially at the start, round one, we were expecting it was going to be Millard, who's obviously retired now, me, Matt, Pink. Goodness me, Skiz and Katie have come out of nowhere. And it's not even like they've come in and just decided to dominate, decided to be absolute powerhouses. No disrespect to you two, but if you remember, Monza is the one that stood out to me. You two are rubbish. You two are rubbish. Good qualifying, 2nd and 6th. They were both reserved for Williams. But as far as I remember, they were crazy. I mean, very dangerous, very aggressive. I think one of them had a wheel problem. I don't remember them being at all notable names. They were just names behind me, you know what I mean? I don't remember. I think Monza was their first drive, most of them it was. And he switched that to now. I mean, they finished, 14th in DNF in that race. Switch that to now, where they've been one of them has been on the podium with me the entire of the second half of the season, and then of course this is the first one where all three of us have been. It's so exciting. I'm so happy to see some more faces up at the front, battling me, battling Matt, battling MCL, these drivers up at the front. They are going to be big names in the transfer market. You know what? Bin it. I'm giving them both driver winner. Yeah, I can't. Katie, I rate you, but Skiz did very well as well. I'm giving you both it. 13th and 12th up to 1st and 2nd. And they were way quicker than me. Fair play. And off the penalties. Driver loser, CGM. Does it need to be any more? Qualified 11th. Finished 14th. When he should be fighting MCL for P3 in the championship. Managed to get 6 penalty points. Which puts him, I think, 1 away from a season ban. So much potential. Just given away, in my opinion. I think CGM is one of the quickest in the division, and he is also one of the most dangerous. And it doesn't matter how quick you are; it almost matters more how dangerous you are. Because if you get a season ban, that's it over. Then you've just put a cap on the amount of points you can get. And his main rival right now is MCL, who is not only performing quite well, but he's very safe as well. I think he's had like 2 penalty points this season. It's not really hooking up for him, and I think Big B is very similar as well. Very aggressive, very impatient. DNF'd this race as well. Mercedes aren't my team loser, but I think CGM is my driver loser for sure. My team winner is going to be Red Bull. Once again, Skiz performing absolutely incredibly. He's probably, I don't know, he's one of Red Bull's best drivers now. In terms of points per race, he might actually be Red Bull's best driver. I think Neb would probably be second to that. But Owls as well. I think Owls is getting much more confident. He's clearly got a lot of pace, and I think that, especially from his background in KRL, he's found a lot of pace, which is exciting. He might actually be a kind of an underdog here in this championship, especially next season, where the contracts might look his way. He's in a Red Bull now, qualified 4th, finished 5th. He's got a very underrated drive, actually. I would argue Owls might be another driver winner, but I'll say, you know what, actually, Red Bull team winner, because that covers Skiz and Owls, and Katie can have driver winner. There we go. There is fair. You can accept that. Owls, very good drive. That's very impressive. My team loser, I'm going to go back to back. I'm going to say Aston Martin. Gone to the moon. Well, first of all, they only had one driver on track because they've only got one driver. Oh, no, that's a lie. Sorry. No. Quick to finish, but they don't get the reserve points for it because they're out of reserve. Obviously, if you don't know the rule, you get 6 reserves in one division. And they've used all that, so quick to finish wouldn't score any points. However, Gone to the Moon has a seat. Qualified 2nd, was fighting me up at the front until it all went wrong. I don't know how it went wrong, but he dropped down to 16th, so clearly it did. 0 points for Aston Martin. Even worse than Division 4 went. So, I mean, if they want to be chasing down Williams, who are ahead of them in the OCC, they need to be performing a little bit better than this. So, very unfortunate, because Gone to the Moon has a lot of potential. He's been quick this season, but for sure my team loser in that division. Right, up to Division 2. I'll try and keep the pace up because I know this is going to be a very long podcast, evidently. For Division 2, my driver winner is going to be Matea. Unreal. I'm going to say debut then. Second race. Unreal second race. Of course, he had his first race in Silverstone, which I'm pretty sure went very well as well. He was fighting very solid in the midfield. Had a little look at the front as well. He ended up finishing 8th after qualifying 12th. Relatively solid. And that made him potentially a good midfield driver. Then he came through to Canada. I'm pretty sure put it on pole. The results haven't been done for Division 2 yet. Put it on pole, I think, but then ended up winning the race with a lot of maturity. He was evidently one of, if not the quickest on track, and managed to avoid the chaos going on behind. Matea is my driver winner for sure. Driver loser, Luca Rosman. I found this out yesterday. Rosman hasn't won a race. I I don't know why. I just assumed he had at this point. But yeah, Rosman got a 10-second and an extra 5-second from Kino. I think he ended up DNFing himself, but I'm pretty sure it's because he had wheels problems. So yeah, DNF and penalty points to come with it. Yeah, it couldn't have really gone much worse. This AlphaTauri Div 2 lineup that will look to be massive, really exciting, has not quite hooked up. And look like it's not necessarily that Rosman and Boomboy are bad. It's just they seem to have done better in their previous teams than the teams they've gone to. But I don't know. We've still got rounds to go. I expecting that they're going to be up there fighting together. It's going to be exciting. But right now, it doesn't seem like it's hooked up perfectly. My team winner and team loser, funnily enough, is going to be the same team. I think you know where I'm going with this. McLaren. You guys managed to qualify for team winner by showing some really good teamwork, by working with each other. Two drivers that are very vocal in the league, Koi and Corbinian, in I believe Corb's first race for the team. If I remember correctly, he was a reserve last week. Yeah, he was. So his first race in the team. Koi partnering him there in McLaren. They probably would have got a 2-3, if not maybe one of them getting P1. I think Matteo was a bit too far ahead, but it would have been a double podium, I think. Corbinian unfortunately suffered the glitch of the thing where when you go into the pits under a safety car. Some of the tracks, and Canada is one of them, where you go into the pits when your delta is negative. You do end up getting a drive through straight away. Most tracks that isn't the case. You can just go into the pits, but Canada, there is a glitch. He ended up getting that, which qualifies for team loser, I think. And why team, I say? Because he ended up losing his seat, because he ended up leaving the league. Out of anger, I imagine. He ended up getting into an argument with Raven off track, and I think a couple others got involved as well. So he's ended up losing his seat from McLaren, which is why it's team loser, McLaren. But team winner because their teamwork was very good. They qualified for team winner, but it all went very, very wrong. Fair play to Koi for keeping his head and managing to finish, I think, P3. But I mean, good teamwork as well. They let each other through under a safety car. While it was illegal, Corb backed at the pack up. If you don't know, the rule is 10 car lengths. Corb was completely right. That it wasn't listed in the rule book, but it was listed in the actual F1 rules. So it's kind of like a misdemeanor. It was kind of like an inside-out pen. So we ended up giving him less of a pen than it was going to be, I believe, to my memory. But yeah. There was clearly a good relationship between those two. Maybe we'll see Corb back in a McLaren. But very unfortunate that he's lost himself a seat. And the podium streak ended. The great podium streak of 3 has ended. And maybe I have to carry on the torch as I've got a 4 podium streak. Corb. Speaking of podium streaks. Sorry, side waffle. Oh, should I talk about it at the end? I'm going to talk about it at the end. Wait till the end. I'm going to talk about it. Finally, to complete this podcast, we're going to move on to Division 1, and my driver winner is going to be the man reserving for Williams. It's going to be F1 Edits. It's going to be Diamond Miner. What a drive, to be fair. And I know Division 1 wasn't much better than Division 2 in terms of safety cars, incidences, damages, all this kind of stuff. But Edits did get the same glitch that Corbinian got, where he sped in the pit lane. Well, didn't actually. He went normal in the pit lane, and but his delta was negative to get a drive through. He also got, I think, involved in an incident early on. He was down in last at the early stages of the race. However, he was able to catch up. He was able to gain on it with the safety cars. Ended up finishing, I think, top 5. Unreal. And very aggressive as well. So really good way to come back to the to racing. Of course, if you don't know, he was signed to Aston Martin at the start of the season, but due to his equipment and a falling out with the team principal, he was unable to continue that seat. So it's interesting that he's come back, done very, very well. My driver loser is BRT Jacob. I mean, he was in probably position to win the race. He was so quick, and in terms of his tyres, his management and stuff like that. However, I think he had an issue, like an audio issue or something with his setup, and he ended up having to retire. Very, very unfortunate because, like I said, McLaren getting a pole position. I think their first pole in Division 1 since Teshubi. So it must be, it's unfortunate to lose a win like that. A lot of good points, potentially. And probably a race to forget for them in Division 2 and 1. My team winner, going to be Red Bull, to finish P2 and P4. Very good management by both drivers. Neb was probably on the run to win the race. Had edits not held him up, he pushed him very wide, turn 2, which cost him a lot of time. He was very, very close to winning, to be fair. But yes, Reese ended up coming out victorious. Yeah, fair play to Neb on that regard. Again, another very good qualifying from him. And Banjo, very good management, pushing his way up to P4. Red Bull teamwork clearly showing out here. And my team loser, again, for the 3rd time this weekend, is going to be Aston Martin. I think it's a weekend to forget for Aston Martin. Choke and Wizzy were in a very good spot. I think they were both running top 5 at one point. I think one of them was on the podium as well. However, Choke got caught in an incident with Deep Cave when he rejoined dangerously at turn 2. I know that Wizzy Boy spun himself, and it all came undone. I don't know where they finished. Actually, I'll check now while I'm chatting. It'll be on the highlights, so I can check now. But they did drop down. I was really unfortunate to see, because I was looking forward. I love to see the lower teams scoring big points and getting a good weekend, but it's very unfortunate to see how it ended. Wizzy in 11th and Choke DNF after running quite high up. So it's, again, very unfortunate to see. I think, yeah, at one point they were running, let's have a look. They were running 4 and 5. They went 3 and 4. So I think the highest they were running was 3 and 4. Very unfortunate to see her go down that bad, because it's lovely to see Aston Martin up there fighting for the wins and stuff. So, very unfortunate one. Right, before I close off this podcast of absolute waffle that I, by the way, have recorded twice, so goodness me, let me relax. Let me go have some food. I'm hungry. I will talk about the announcement that I made. Ladies and gentlemen, F1 Fantasy has hit XRS. Of course, with the upcoming 2024 season in real Formula 1, we are holding our very own XRS Fantasy. If you haven't joined it, I really hope you do. I'm currently like the admin or whatever you call it on that league. And I think we've got 18, 19 people in, which is very, very exciting. More than I expected. It's going to be very, very competitive. You get to pick 5 drivers, 2 teams. You can change it. You can have different power-ups. So you give like a DRS or something to get double points. You get like different power-ups to give extra points. I don't know. I don't know how it works, because I haven't done it since 2022. So it's going to be a little bit of an experimental thing for me. Very excited about my team. I won't tell you what it is. But yes, jump in, do your best. You get one team, pick it well with an 100 mil budget, and let's all be a team principal for this upcoming season. The season in real F1 will end, if my maths are working, right? So we've got season 1 here in the year. Season 2 will end in around August. So I think it'll be the start of season 4, and we're at the end of we're coming up to the end of season 1. So we've got a long way to go. So I'm sure a lot of new people will join the league at this point. It'll be a very exciting time. Season 4 of XRS. You know how crazy that is? Oh, I can't wait. We're not gonna have to wait till then to see the results that are coming for the next weekend. We've got COTA coming up. It's the final sprint weekend. Track limits galore once again, but better racing hopefully than Canada. Goodness me. Take care in those S corners, goodness me. And I will see you there. I'm excited.